Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine the kind of the plumbing system for the entire European financial market.
Hmm.
It's complex, right?
Hmm.
Interconnected and absolutely critical for everything to flow smoothly and, cleanly.
Yeah, good analogy.
So today we're doing a deep dive into a really core part of that system, ESMA. That's the European Securities and Markets Authority.
And our guide for this is an excerpt from FinCrime Intelligence. It gives us a really good focused look at what ESMA actually is, where it fits in the EU structure,
Right.
its key jobs, and maybe most importantly for our audience, why its work is so vital, especially for market integrity and indirectly preventing financial crime.
Yeah, because as the source points out, and this is key, it's not technically an anti-money laundering authority,
Yeah,
not in the way we usually think of one.
exactly. It's a bit more nuanced than that.
Right. So our mission here is to pull out those essential bits and really understand this authority's critical role, even if it's not, the main AML cop on the beat. So setting the stage.
Yeah.
Right from the start, the source material describes ESMA as an independent EU authority. And its basic goal, safeguarding stability and integrity, in the financial markets across the EU.
And if you boil down how it does that, it comes down to a few things. Transparency is one, protecting investors, that's another big one,
Okay.
and maybe most crucially, making sure financial regulations are applied consistently, everywhere, across all member states.
Consistency. That sounds important, like making sure everyone's playing by the same rules.
Exactly. Think of it as maybe the chief architect making sure the rule book is the same, and it's used the same way, whether you're in, say, Germany or Spain or Ireland.
Interesting. And this authority, it hasn't been around forever, has it?
No, relatively new, actually. It was set up in 2011. It came about as part of this bigger framework, the European System of Financial Supervision, or
So
ESFS.
it's not working alone.
Definitely not. It's part of TRIO, really. It works alongside the EBA, the European Banking Authority,
Right. Heard of them.
and EIOPA, which is the European Insurance and Occupational Pensions Authority. They're the main European supervisory authorities.
Okay, so its job involves supervising, but also advising. But here's the interesting bit you mentioned. It doesn't replace the national regulators.
Correct. It doesn't step into their shoes entirely. Its main job is to ensure that EU financial rules are implemented and enforced consistently by those national authorities in each country.
Ah, okay. So it's about harmonization, making sure the national guys are all singing from the same EU hymn sheet.
Precisely. And that consistency is absolutely key, especially now, as the EU's financial markets get more and more integrated.
Makes sense. Money flows across borders instantly.
It does. And the source notes that ESMA's influence, its authority really, it keeps growing because you need that coordination to tackle risks and, well, misconduct that just doesn't care about borders. It's like the conductor for the orchestra, ensuring everyone's together.
Okay, good picture. So how wide is this net ESMA Act casts? What are the sort of big areas of work it's responsible for, according to the source?
Oh, it covers a lot of ground. There's investor protection, like
Yeah.
we said, making sure investors get a fair shake, clear information.
Okay.
Then there's market integrity. That's a big one. It involves monitoring and trying to reduce things like market abuse, insider trading, manipulation.
Well, hold on. Market integrity.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds very close to financial crime prevention, doesn't it? Is there an overlap?
Huge overlap, absolutely. And that's the really critical nuance we need to dig into.
Okay, we'll come back to that. What else?
It also supports financial stability, generally trying to make markets more resilient to shocks. And like we touched on, it pushes for regulatory convergence, consistent rules.
Wait, the harmonization thing.
Yeah. And it also has certain specific entities it supervises directly. We can get into those details a bit later.
Okay. And you can really see its reach when you look at the specific EU regulations it
Yeah.
helps, shape and enforce.
Yeah.
The source mentions some big ones.
Yeah, absolutely. It highlights major pieces of legislation. There's the Market Abuse Regulation, MAR, that's key for stopping insider trading and manipulation. Then MiFID, second today, the Markets and Financial Instruments Directive 2, that shapes how firms deal with clients, how markets are structured, really fundamental stuff.
Okay.
And there's EMIR, the European Market Infrastructure Regulation. That focuses on derivatives, clearing houses, the plumbing you mentioned earlier,
Gotcha.
and CSDR, the Central Securities Depositories Regulation, which deals with the settlement of trades. So yeah, these are massive regulations governing huge chunks of the financial system. And if you connect this back, these regulations are really the bedrock for how markets operate, how firms interact with clients, how trades are reported, monitored. all across Europe.
Okay, let's tackle that nuance then. The source is very clear. ESMA is not an AML authority, not primarily.
Hmm.
It's not chasing the dirty money itself. So why then does the source insist its role is still crucial for FinCrime prevention?
Right, this is where it gets interesting. It's an indirect connection, but incredibly powerful. The source really emphasizes ESMA's role in ensuring market conduct and integrity. Think of it like this. ESMA isn't, the police chasing the bank robbers. That's more the job of the AML authorities, law enforcement.
Right.
But ESMA is more like the city planners and the building inspectors. They make sure the financial infrastructure, the markets, the trading venues is solid, transparent, well monitored.
Oh, okay. I see. So by overseeing how markets work and how firms behave.
Exactly. By doing that, ESMA significantly reduces the vulnerabilities, the cracks that criminals could exploit for things like market abuse, fraud, insider dealing.
Okay, so it's less about finding the laundered cash after the fact and more about making the system itself cleaner and more visible so crime is just harder to pull off undetected in the first place.
You've got it.
Yeah.
Precisely. And its contributions here are quite concrete. The source points to things like setting transparency standards for trading venues and firms, basically making sure activity happens out in the open.
Visibility is key.
Absolutely. And it enforces requirements for transaction reporting and surveillance under rules like MFIR and EMIR. You need that data.
Right. Getting that transaction data must be vital for spotting anything suspicious. The source mentions STORs specifically, suspicious transaction and order reports.
Yes, exactly. ESMA provides guidance that helps firms actually identify what looks odd, what needs to be reported as a store, that clarity is essential.
Okay.
And ESMA works very closely with the national competent authorities, the NCAs in each country, coordinating enforcement actions, doing thematic reviews together.
So it's not just setting rules, it's involved in making sure they stick.
Yeah, and it influences the broader EU financial crime framework, too. It collaborates with other EU bodies, provides risk assessments, opinions, technical standards, all of which feeds into shaping the overall rulebook.
So it's shaping the environment, even in areas slightly beyond its core market integrity job.
That's a good way to put it. And given how integrated these markets are, the source really highlights how important that cross-border cooperation is. ESMA works closely with the national regulators to harmonize how they supervise and enforce things.
Which makes total sense. Market abuse, insider trading, that stuff doesn't respect borders.
Not at all. So when you do get misconduct that spans different countries, ESMA helps facilitate sharing information, setting up joint investigations. It really pushes for that regulatory convergence we talked about.
And internationally, too.
Yes, it engages with bodies like IOSCO, the International Organization of Securities Commissions, to help align EU rules with global standards, trying to close gaps criminals might otherwise exploit.
Okay, let's talk about those specific entities you mentioned earlier, the ones ESMA directly supervises. Who are they, and why does that direct oversight matter for, the bigger picture of market integrity and crime prevention?
Okay, the source lists 3 key types. First, trade repositories.
Trade repositories.
Yeah.
What are those exactly?
Think of them like central libraries or data hubs, places where all the details of complex financial deals like derivatives contracts or securities financing transactions have to be recorded.
Okay. Centralizing the data.
Exactly. And why is that critical? Well, having all that data in one spot is absolutely vital for regulators like ESMA to see the big picture, to see where risks might be building up, to spot unusual patterns.
Which, of course, is also crucial for spotting potential financial crime hidden in those complex transactions.
Precisely. So that transparency and data access is key.
Okay, who's next?
Second are credit rating agencies, CRAs.
Okay, the ones rating companies and governments. Moody's, S&P, Fitch, those guys.
Those types, yes. They play a huge role in the markets, obviously influencing investment decisions. So the source notes they need really strict governance standards because their opinions carry so much weight. Ensuring their integrity is vital.
Absolutely. You need to trust those ratings.
And the third group is EU benchmark administrators. These fall under the EU benchmark regulation, the BMR.
Benchmarks, like interest rates. LIBOR used to be one.
Exactly like LIBOR. These are entities that provide those key reference rates used in trillions of euros worth of financial contracts, interest rates, stock indices, things like that. The source specifically mentions this is super relevant now with the whole global transition away from LIBOR. Making sure the new benchmarks are trustworthy is critical.
Right, that LIBOR scandal showed how badly things can go wrong there. So ESMA overseeing the administrators directly adds a layer of confidence.
It really does. This direct supervision role, it's significant. It underlines ESMA's growing importance in maintaining, robust market infrastructure and reliable reference data. Both are foundational for spotting crime and making sure everyone has confidence in the system.
So let's bring this down to earth.
Yeah.
How does all this ESMA activity translate for the people actually working in finance? The firms operating in the EU, compliance professionals. How does ESMA's work hit their desks day to day?
Oh, it has a huge impact. For compliance teams, ESMA's regulations and all the guidance they issue directly shape core processes. The source gives some good examples.
Like what?
Like the requirements for client onboarding and suitability assessments under Method 2.
Okay, so basic KYC stuff, making sure you know your customer and the products fit.
Exactly, which ties right back to preventing fraud and protecting investors, as you said.
Makes sense.
Also, the obligations around surveillance and reporting for potential market abuse under MA, that's directly about spotting dodgy trading activity. Compliance teams need systems for that.
Right? Monitoring trades, looking for red flags.
Yep. And disclosure rules, transparency obligations for financial products and the companies issuing them. That's another big piece of the compliance puzzle shaped by ESMA's rules.
And what about things like rules on inducements, conflicts of interest, making sure firms give clients the best execution on trades? That sounds like MiFID II territory, too.
All under the MiFID II umbrella, yes.
Mm-hmm.
ESMA sets detailed standards on all of that. The source really emphasizes that for any firm operating in or across the EU, keeping up with ESMA's updates is just essential.
It's not a one-and-done thing.
Not at all. You have to watch their regulatory technical standards, the RTS, the Q&As they put out to clarify rules, consultation papers on upcoming changes. It's a constant process. Compliance has to keep evolving alongside ESMA's guidance.
Okay. So looking ahead now, our source gives some hints about where ESMA might be focusing next. What are the sort of predicted future hotspots for ESMA?
Yeah, the source suggests ESMA is probably going to take on more responsibility, not less, particularly in areas that are changing really fast.
Like
Digital finance generally. Crypto assets, obviously a massive topic right now, full of potential and risk.
Definitely.
And ESG disclosures, environmental, social, and governance factors, making sure claims about sustainability are accurate and comparable.
So really the cutting edge of finance in areas where, let's be honest, new types of risk and maybe new types of financial crime could emerge.
Absolutely. And the source points directly to that connection. It expects ESMA to play a key role in tackling emerging risks that are very relevant to financial crime.
So-
Things like cybercrime targeting financial infrastructure, greenwashing, making false or misleading claims about environmental credentials.
Greenwashing. That's a big concern.
Huge. And also the potential misuse of algorithmic trading platforms, using high-speed computers for market manipulation in new ways.
Wow. Which really brings us full circle, doesn't it? Back to that financial crime prevention angle. These are the new battlegrounds where financial misconduct might pop up in the digital age.
Exactly right. The overall goal, as the source wraps up, is that by promoting this stable, transparent regulatory environment, ESMA boosts market confidence. And that contributes significantly to the bigger picture of preventing financial misconduct across Europe. It's fundamentally about building a clean, well-lit marketplace.
So pulling all these threads together then,
Yeah.
what's the main takeaway? We've seen ESMA isn't your typical AML authority chasing illicit funds,
No?
but its work on market integrity and transparency is absolutely fundamental. It's clearly a central piece in the whole EU financial regulatory puzzle.
Definitely. Harmonizing rules, supervising critical infrastructure like those trade repositories, tackling risks that cross borders.
Yeah.
It's key.
And its influence, its rules, they flow right down to the nitty-gritty of daily operations and compliance tasks within financial firms across the EU.
They really do.
Okay, so thinking about that looking ahead section the source gave us, ESMA is already getting involved in complex new areas like crypto and ESG, but that specific mention of emerging risks like cybercrime or the misuse of algorithmic trading, that feels really significant. What does that suggest to you about how financial crime itself is evolving and maybe what regulators and frankly everyone working in finance needs to be watching out for next? It's certainly something to think about if these technologies and markets keep developing and the criminals inevitably adapt.